Alright, this is going to be another replay coaching. We're still looking at Mr. Fearless Oreos and his Sylas. He is playing against a Katarina this game. Since, the last time that we looked at one of his games, he ended up losing despite doing quite well. I thought, might as well look at a game where he completely stomps the enemy team. So, this should be interesting. I haven't watched this, but yeah, we're just going to be able to react to this live. And see maybe what he could have done better. He did carry quite hard this game, but there's always stuff that could be improved. So this could maybe be helpful for some tips, if you are ahead, just to, keep your lead rolling, maybe some stuff like that. So it did start with the Doran's Ring. That's a standard start that I like. Playing as Katarina. Katarina is not a very hard matchup. You do kind of win trades with your W, but you do have to be careful of her burst damage. It's kind of like Echo. She's not super scary, but if you underestimate her, she can definitely mess you up. So we had to go E-start here. I actually do kind of like E-start into Katarina. She's very weak level 1, so, it's acceptable. Q-start also works, but E-start is definitely something that you could go for if you wanted. You need to go for the W level 2. In most of these matchups where you're against like a melee champ like this, if you do start E level 1, W level 2 is pretty nice because you just get to win those early trades even harder. Fortunately, I did miss both of those CS. You probably should have known that the one that was dying the tower wouldn't be in his auto range and just gone for the one that his minions were attacking. Just a minor error. So now at level 3, if you don't stand in Katarina's daggers, at least if you don't stand in both of them, she shouldn't really be able to kill you. Alright, yeah, nice trade there. I mean, Katarina tried to go in, didn't land like any of her daggers, so, just getting the ignite off, getting the trade, obviously very strong. The main thing is, Katarina, if she goes in and doesn't collect her daggers, her E, and even if she does, early game, her E is still a pretty decent cooldown. If she doesn't collect any, then she has no E at all if she uses it to go in. So, pretty easy kill from there. This wave did go under tower, so he was able to push it fast enough, fortunately. And he did go back to base, and he bought Dark Seal and an Amp Tome. I've discussed this in the other videos, but yeah, that's basically my typical buy order every game. I always go Dark Seal on my first back, and then I buy however many Amp Tomes I can afford. I would have liked to see him buy a control word here. I don't know if he had enough gold, but if he did, that's definitely something you should be doing. Because having that early control word can be really nice to just secure the lane, especially if you're strong like this. Like, he's obviously a lot more powerful than the Katarina, so having a control ward just gives you even more dominance over the lane. Now, I'm not sure, he pinged missing. It was a bit before Katarina came. But I think he probably could have done that a bit earlier. Okay, gets a double wave crash under the tower. That's fine. Katarina won't miss too much though because there's a cannon, unfortunately. Actually, no, she missed the entire thing because I have no idea where she is. So, nice. So, I mean, you want to push that under tower anyway. Um, I, I'm just not really sure. She missed 2.5 waves for nothing. She went back and bought a Sheen. So, who knows? She definitely could have been there a lot faster, I think. Maybe she either backed late or she was waiting for gold or something like that. But you know, if I was in this game and I was looking at this, I'd say, okay, Katarina, when she's gonna go the Divine Sunder. My God, yeah, those 3 missed waves. I mean, she's level 4 at this point, and he's level 6. That is brutal. Yeah, Katarina's gonna go Divine Sunder, so her damage is gonna be a bit lower. And what's nice about that, she's not really gonna be able to fight you either, because she's so far behind at this point. So even if she did get her Divine Sunder at some point, she'd be so far behind it wouldn't really matter. And it just drastically lowers her damage. Alright, so let's see what happens here. This is a bit unfortunate. That was killable if he had mana, but he didn't have mana, obviously, so even if the turtle didn't take any tower shots, I think he still could have tried to kill. Assuming he had mana, of course, but you know, he didn't. But if I had mana there and I was in that situation, I would have probably gone back in. I would have baited the trundle towards my tower a little bit. Even if he didn't take any shots, I probably would have gone back in. Probably could have got him very low. I'm not sure if it would have killed, but you know, that's a limit test that you need to make. So goes back, buys the last chapter, another Amp Tome. It's pretty good. Going for Lost Chapter as the first component is obviously very strong. So autoing the minions is good. Just thinning out the wave. I'd probably, I mean, yeah, you can let's push into you. It doesn't really matter. Okay, I like the missing pings. I think he accidentally pinged on the way as well. But in some of his other games, he wasn't really pinging enough. And so he's kind of pinging a bit late. Against Katarina here, so he actually doesn't have a ward up, judging by the scoreboard. But once he does get a ward up, maybe after next wave, I'm not sure exactly how long it has on it. I would ward the middle of the lane, somewhere, you know, outside of the enemy tower range, but in that area where the melee minions are. Against Katarina and against other champs that like to roam a lot, it's really useful because whenever they, you know, disappear from the lane, you can tell exactly where they went. Maybe they're just standing there doing nothing, and then your team doesn't have to worry. Maybe they went back, and then you know they went back. Or maybe they walked towards top or bot side, and then you'll know exactly where they went. So, let's see. Maybe he does it here. I don't think he will, but let's see. I think at this elo, best thing to do here would be to keep the wave mostly even. Because if you just push it into Katarina, it's a bit, I mean, he tried to EW there, but hit the minions, so. But it's a bit hard to dive on Katarina. Maybe he's able to do it here coming up, I'm not sure, but yeah, it's a bit hard to dive Katarina even when she is this weak. And so, oh, he did actually ward the lane there. Nice, I like that. So keeping the wave even, it kind of forces her, in this elo, I think in higher elos it might be, you know, they might be more cautious, but I think around this level, this is about gold 4. Sorry, I didn't mention that at the beginning, but it should be in the thumbnail. They'll be more aggressive because they want the minions, and then you can jump on them from there. So let's see what's happening over here. So Gurn's actually winning that pretty hard. Okay, nice Everfrost while she's in the ult to make sure she can't E afterwards. Good job. Fortunately, did miss a wave there, but I mean, yeah, roaming to that fight was definitely the better play, overtaking the wave. Depending on how like some fights play out, you know, you could maybe try and get a little bit of the wave. Like, if the fight had been more towards mid lane when he arrived in that area, then he could have walked towards mid lane and got some of the XP of the minions as they were dying to tower. But it was basically in the river at that point, so, you know, walking directly there was the better option. Getting tower plating, nice. Still doesn't have a control ward. That's the main thing I've noticed this game. If he had a control ward, his lane state would be so much stronger. Because you can just, like, control ward. Let's see. Okay, the Trundle. Trundle, it's actually really good on Sylas. It's, the AP scaling isn't, like, you know, insane or anything, but it's definitely a really strong ult. For duels, of course. I mean, in the team fights, it has a bit less use, but... Anyway, back to what I was saying about the control wards. If he had a control ward right here, like in this bot bush, you know, the one that he's standing in right now, his lane state would be so much better. Especially because, you know, then that wouldn't be warded. That would allow his team to have more access to the dragon because they know that the enemy won't have wards in that area. It allows you to walk there freely because you know they won't have vision. It's just so strong to have a control ward there. You can also put it topside bush, this one over here. I prefer the bot bush just because I feel like I normally play for my bot lane more. So yeah, Katarina walked up more, got the Trundle ult off. I don't actually think he needed to ignite there. I think the Trundle would have killed her, but ignite, since he goes Cosmic Insight, you know, ignites a 2.5 minute cooldown anyway. It's actually very low, so. You know, if you waste your Ignite Tetsuger kill, I'd say that's worth. It's better than letting them get away in those situations, so let's see how he does this. Okay. So he should wave clear this and then try and get the try and kill the turret would be what I would do. Okay, so he goes for the wave clear. He's walking up to the turret. I assume Katarina will come back by now. Okay, Katarina's not here, but something I was gonna say. Oh, Katarina's bot lane, and he should have been missing here, but again, he's a bit pushed up. I don't think he really thought about it because Katarina was, you know, so weak. But here, you know, it does end up killing his Kaisa, even though she didn't die to the Katarina. She died because the Katarina was there. Maybe, you know, pinging would have helped a little bit with that. But one thing I wanted to mention, because I assume that Katarina is going to come back mid, is that if the turret is really low, you can kind of just ignore the like enemy, whoever like walks up to try and stop you, and just keep hitting the turret. You have to be a bit cautious because, you know, you could die. Like, I've actually done this against a Katarina recently, where I tried to just kill the turret, and I did kill the turret, but then I died afterwards because they kind of underestimated her damage with her ult plus ignite. But, you know, if, for example, you know, in this game, Katarina's super weak, so I'd be more inclined to just ignore her and take the tower. Some games I'll have, like, enemy support walk up with their 500 HP tower, and I'll just completely ignore them because they're not going to do anything to me. And that's more assuming that I know, you know, like I'm not about to get ganked, like I have some vision on enemies around the map, so I know I'm not about to get jumped by like 3 of them. And that's also like one of the major things I'd say will definitely improve your gameplay. You know, it's something that's definitely an experience. Like, you have to be able to think about it to really start understanding it. Just like looking at the map, and you have to use the information that you're not given to determine how you're gonna play. Yeah, it's got the long range Everfrost there. But yeah, you have to use the information that you're not given to determine how you're allowed to play, is how I should put it. Because if there are literally no enemies on the map and you haven't seen any of them in 30 seconds, then they could be anywhere. Like you can't do anything at that point. You can maybe try and like push up, bait someone to like come near you, but let's go into Swain here. I mean, yeah, he's a ton of burst damage, bunch of sustainability with the Swain ult. My God, they're just getting ravaged. Yeah, I would just E back in here and get the W for the healing. But anyway, as I was saying, on the flip side, if you see 4 enemies bot lane and the one guy that's missing is like the enemy ADC, who is not a threat to you, probably, then you can basically do whatever you want, assuming you're on the other side of the map. Like if you're top lane, 4 enemies bot lane, you can do whatever you want. Because you have a lot of information, there's no missing information. But, if the last time you saw the enemy jungler and the enemy support was 30 seconds ago, they could be anywhere, so you have to use that information that you don't know where they are and determine, okay, maybe I shouldn't walk up here. Or I need to stay out of vision while I'm side laning. Something that I like to do a lot is I'll just stand. Like if I was side laning here in this bot lane, and I didn't have vision of any of the enemies, it's really hard for me to walk up here, so I'd probably just like stand back here somewhere and wait for someone to show on the map, and then maybe, okay, they show on this Raptors ward, and then I'm like, okay, now I can walk up, it's a bit safer. But I don't want to be walking up when, there's the potential for 4 of them to come after me. Because even though that might not happen, it might happen, so... So he did go back there. He got the Shadow Flame. Built most of his Zanyas. The stopwatch is a very important component. I usually buy that first in, like basically every game. After I get the Shadow Flame, just having that stasis is really nice. You probably only need it once because Zanyas is actually really cheap, so you'll only really need the one use from the stopwatch by the time that you're actually able to get the full Zanyas, and then you'll have it on a 2-minute cooldown. And the stasis is just so powerful on Sylas. So I like him coming top here because it's the opposite side of where his team was, and his team doesn't really... Wait, I thought they got this tower. Huh. I guess they were just diving the enemy. His team doesn't really need him that much, because, he's a melee champ. You can't really dive them under inhib tower. He could show up and kind of like maybe ward off like their team from jumping on his bot lane, but for the most part, you're not really going to be able to do much if you go mid. So it's better to side lane and push a lane. Get some farm. So he did go back at the full Zanyas. I'd probably go bot lane here. Could also just walk mid. I'd probably walk mid, take the mid wave, and then rotate to bot lane. I want to take the wave so it starts pushing to them. And then probably just go bot lane after this, because it's gonna be hard for me to actually like take this mid lane stuff. And having the mid and bot waves pushing at the same time is quite nice. But you guys go instead for the fight. Now, while I was saying that, this fight wasn't going on. So, in this situation, I would have gone to the fight as she did. But what I was saying earlier was more referring to, if Garen's just sidling up here peacefully, the enemies don't engage on him. In this situation, the roaming up to the fight was correct. Now you should just take the turret here. Yeah, I guess you can wave clear first. But you do want to make sure that you're in range to get the gold of it. At this point, I just go and take the enemy jungle camps. You don't have waves, so you can't... Oh, he's going, I mean, yeah, I guess he's strong enough to just one-shot like that. A little bit risky, though. I probably would have tried for the same thing, but... Maybe stayed a little bit farther away. When he's going in... I mean, at this point he's 13-0. It's, yeah, he's quite fed. But as I was saying earlier, I probably would have started taking enemy jungle camps. Because I didn't have... There weren't any waves under tower. Also that Zynia is pretty unnecessary. Oh, Katarina actually rage quit the game. Yeah, taking jungle camps, I've said it a lot, something that I like to do. Just gets you even farther ahead in gold, especially if it's the enemy jungle camps, because then you're taking resources from the enemy. And then you just take those while you're waiting for your waves to catch up to the tower. So you can instead decided to fight, which is a bit riskier, but you know, in the end it did work out because you're just so fed. But you know, in maybe a closer game, I would have gone for the camps. So just get back here, get the void staff. Okay, I've talked about this. Let's actually do another analysis of this void staff buy, because I think I've talked about this in both of the other coaching replay videos that I made on Mr. Fearless Orias, and I think he bought void staff 2 times now as his 4th item. I think the game he lost, he bought death cap first, but I don't actually remember. But as just a quick rundown, I always say, you know, I start with Everfrost, and this is for the first strike build, by the way. Start with Everfrost. Once you get your Everfrost, I buy Sorcerer Shoes, then go for the Shadow Flame. That's basically your core. That gives you all your burst damage. 3rd item is always Zanya's. That gives you the survivability. It's very important. Then your 4th and 5th item are generally going to be Void Staff and Death Cap. The order that I buy them in depends on if the enemy's building Magic Resist or not. If they are building Magic Resist, go Void, or you anticipate they will, because, you know, maybe they're not building it by the time you have completed 3 items. But if you have like 3 AP on your team, you can kind of guess, okay, the enemy team is probably going to start buying Magic Resist, so I'll buy a preemptive Void Staff. Otherwise, if they're not building Magic Resist, then go Death Cap, because that's way more damage. Here, he bought the Void Staff. He did this in his other games as well, but they do not have any Magic Resist, which makes it quite useless. And I did explain this, I did explain the math on this in my other videos, but let me just explain it again in case you haven't watched it. The Shadow Flame gives up to 20 magic penetration. We'll just assume it's about 20 because, you know, it's at like 1,000 health. The Swain has 1,400 health, so we'll assume it's about max. So 20. Sorcerer Shoes gives 18. Now, the Void Staff percent magic penetration applies before the flat penetration, but it's actually super strong. So for example, if an enemy had 100 magic resist, it would subtract 45 from that because of the Void Staff, and then it would subtract 38 from the shoes and the Shadow Flame, which, you know, ends up making them have a lot lower than if it was the other way around. So, yeah, the Swain has 34 magic resist. Oh, yeah, I forgot. But an important part of that is that your magic resist can't be below 0. So once you get the enemy's magic resist to 0, that's basically it. You know, you can't go below that. You can't, like, penetrate further than that. And so this magic resist, Swain has 34 magic resist. So Sylas is doing true damage to him. With the Shadow Flame Sorcerer Shoes, the Void Staff is doing literally nothing, because with the Void Staff, Swain has 0 magic resist. Without it, Swain has 0 magic resist. So this Void Staff is just a stick that gives him 65 AP for 2,800 gold. Same with the Jhin. Jin's the same thing. Trundle is a little bit tankier. Here, Trundle goes from like 12 magic resist, something around that. 15, I think. Yeah, 15 magic resist to 0. Now, that's like a decent damage increase, but it's definitely not worth this entire Void Staff item for. And then Scion over here, Scion's going from 6 to 0. So overall, I mean, they haven't bought any magic resist. The Void Staff buy is just not the play, because even, you know, even buying like a needlessly large rod, it gives you 5 less AP, but it, you know, it costs like 1,400 gold less, 1,550 gold less actually. So this Void Staff's just completely worthless. You know, if you thought that they were going to build AP, I would still build it, but in this particular game, his entire team is 80 except for him, so I would just go for the death cap. But again, just stuff that you can work on like that, like just optimizations in your build, you know, very important and can definitely give you that edge because, you know, items are really important. If you're not building the right ones, then you're going to put yourself at a disadvantage. Okay, so yeah, I mean, at this point, he's 18-0. Yeah, enemy team can't really play the game here. Katarina disconnects again. And yeah, I mean, overall, pretty well played game. I think definitely this was a good game that demonstrated Sylas's knowledge of his limits and mechanics. I think his combos could have been a bit cleaner, but overall they were pretty good. Limit testing wise, I think he went for a lot of stuff. Didn't really have a lot of missed opportunities. I might make a video on that later too. I was thinking about something like that, like a limit testing video, but how important limit testing is, even if it seems like a meme. And yeah, overall pretty well played. You know, I don't think I really have any like major complaints besides control wards and void staff, which are both related to his build. Control wards aren't really you know, part of the main build, but buying a control ward in that early game would have helped out a lot. Just would have made his lane like so much more like fortified. Like the enemy team would have had such a harder time doing anything, even harder than it already was for them. All he needed to do was spend 75 gold and then place it like in this bush here, and then he would have been like, this lane would have been completely gone to the enemies, because there's no way they ever contest stuff like this, and his team always knows that this stuff is not warded, so they can walk around here with no worries at all. So yeah, control wards, very important. Yeah, the void staff buy, not good. If you go back with like 2,800 gold and you're like, okay, I can buy a full void staff, or I can buy one of these with large rod. If you still have your dark seal in your inventory like he does here, you can also just upgrade this to a Medjai's. You can go, it depends on your number of stacks. I do this a lot in my games. If buying Medjai's gives you the strongest, now I don't buy Medjai's early game because I feel like I'm gonna end. But if you have no inventory space and buying a Medjai's gives you the strong, or like the largest immediate power increase, then that's when I'll buy it. So like right here, if I didn't have this white stuff in my inventory and I had 800 gold or something, and I saw the enemy team had no magic resist, I would upgrade my Medjai's and I'd buy a needlessly large rod because I know I don't need that void staff, and I can't afford the death cap yet, and I don't want to sell a 10 stack dark seal, so I'll just go ahead and upgrade the dark seal and then start working towards the death cap. And then, you know, if I die later, lose some of the stacks, then it's whatever, I can just sell it. But yeah, and then if you, in a situation like that, if you know that you don't want to build void staff because they're not building magic resist, and you have like a low stack dark seal, like it has like 3 stacks or something like that, then you just sell the dark seal and use that inventory slot for another needlessly large rod. Just get 2 of those. And yeah, I mean, another thing, should have bought sweeper this game. I sometimes forget, so something I need to work on as well. But I mean, he has 2 stealth wards up. I mean, you don't really need wards at this point. Your support will take care of that. His ADC and his top lane also have the stealth ward. I mean, they should probably be upgrading as well. But especially if you see that your team, now if his team had like 4 sweepers, which happened in one of his games, I'd recommend upgrading to the blue trinket instead. But usually you want to get red trinket on Sylas. I usually get it around 1.5 items when I have like my Everfrost plus Sorcerer Shoes plus like a component of Shadow Flame. You know, maybe it'll be different depending on how you feel that you're going to play. I usually like it then because that's when I have a lot of burst damage. Or that's when I start to get a lot of burst damage. And so I like to walk around in the jungle, and if I catch someone out, I can just kill them, and I need to make sure I'm not on enemy vision. You know, for other builds like the Conqueror build, which has a bit less damage because you don't go the Sorcerer Shoes and you don't go the Shadow Flame, might be different for you. Maybe you like the utility of the Stealth Ward a bit more because you aren't doing as much damage, as much burst damage. And so you'll keep it for longer, but in the end, I'd recommend upgrading to the Sweeper just because, you know, Sylas is a high burst damage melee champion. Getting that Sweeper is definitely going to help you with flanking and all that stuff. So yeah. Mostly only issues with the build here. I don't think, you know, maybe he could have side laned better. Not really. I didn't really pay attention to that too much. But I think that was fine. And yeah, overall, just a couple issues with what he was building. Definitely Void Staff was not the play. Should have gone Sweeper. And should have bought Control Words. I don't think he actually bought any Control Words this game, which is a big problem if that's what you're consistently doing. But, yeah, I mean, there are some games where I find it hard to buy Control Words just because I don't, you know, every time I go back, either my inventory is full or I don't have gold. And if that happens, then, I mean, it happens, but generally, I like to buy at least a couple Control Words every game. They definitely help out a lot. With that laning phase, help your support and jungler roam mid, and overall just very good. So yeah, that was another game, you know, a bit on the opposite side of the last one that I did, where, you know, he did really well, but he ended up losing. You know, this game he did pretty well, and he ended up stomping the enemy. So fortunately, his team was a bit better this game, so it was a bit easier for him to do that. But um, yeah, hopefully some of this stuff, you know, related to the build and everything. You know, hopefully you learned something. Hopefully I can help you out in your games. If you do enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing, leaving a comment. Any feedback would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.